joining us on this special day. We are proud to launch a new edition of ContraPeso Noticias for our audience in the United States. This project has been prepared since December, and today it will become a reality. They from Chiapas, Mexico, and Ana Acevedo. It's 9:30 a.m. at Mexican time. This Monday, January 5th, 2026. Let's begin with today's top headlines. Mexico responds cautiously following new threats from Donald Trump after the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Colombia prepares an economic state of emergency along its border with Venezuela. An analyst says Venezuelan oil may be the true price behind Maduro's capture. We start with national news. On January 3rd, 2026, demonstrators gathered outside the United States Embassy in Mexico City to express their rejection to the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and what they described as U.S. military aggression against Caracas. The march, organized by activist collective and not governmental organization, began at the Agent of Independence and proceeded toward the heaviside to Juarez in support of Venezuela's foreign, and with demands for the release of both Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. Throughout the demonstration, participation waved Venezuelan and Palestinian flag and carried signs reading, "Trump is a murderer," "Latin America united against imperialism," and "Stop terror." As they moved along Paseo de la Reforma, protesters chanted slogans such "Venezuela, we love you. That's why we defend you. Yankees out of Latin America," and "No to war, yes to peace," reflecting a tone of solidarity and resistance that defended the mobility. Daniela Gonzalez, a member of the Common Platform for Palestine and the People's Human Rights Observatory, said at the protest aimed to show solidarity with Venezuela to denounce U.S. intervention as an attack on the self-determination of Latin American nations. She argued that Washington's strategy seeks to overthrow legitimate governments and impose authorities aligned with its own interests, calling it a serious threat to the region. According to Mexico City Police, approximately 150 people participate in the demonstration, which remained orderly and clothed with a strong call for continental unity against external aggression. We continue with more national news. Mexican Senator Hernando Fernández Noroña was recorded in a video shared on social media while shopping at the upscale Renaissance Shopping Center in Rome, Italy. The footage was published by Roberto Quijano, a lifetime ambassador of Baja California, who accused the senator of physically assaulting him after being confronted in a public street. According to Quijano, when she questioned the senator about this stay in Rome, Fernández Noroña responded by striking him with his hand and saying, "Do you think you're the only one who has the right to be in Rome? No, my friend." The video also shows the senator companion backing him up and calling Quijano a poor idiot before they both walk away.
Senador Noroña, ¿qué se siente estar aquí en Roma?
Pues muy bien, ¿crees que eres el único que tienes derecho a estar en Roma? No, mi amigo.
Mira, aquí está. Aquí me está agrediendo el senador Fernández Noroña. Defiende a Maduro. Defiende al Maduro. Está aquí en Roma mientras el país está en crisis. Un corrupto. Aquí véanlo. Que me atropelle.
The recording for it shows Quijano accusing the senator of corruption and of defending Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro, pointing out that Fernández Noroña was vacationing in Europe while Mexico is facing a serious crisis. As he left the stand, the senator reaffirmed his support for Maduro, calling him a legitimate leader. The incident comes in the wake of the arrest of Nicolas Maduro by U.S. authorities on January 3rd, an event that was generated sharply divided reactions among Mexican lawmakers. Fernández Noroña was one of the first to respond, declaring that Maduro is a prisoner of war and calling the arrest a grave act of aggression against us. The Rome episode was sparking whispered controversy on social media, where both the senator's conduct and his political stance on Venezuela continued to fade. And now, turning to the international implication of the growing crisis. Mexico is facing an increasingly complex scenario following the capture of Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro in New York and the new threat issued by US President Donald Trump. The weekend was marked by a military operation in Caracas that Trump publicized praised in multiple statements. During those remarks, he also pointed toward Mexico as a possible next target, referring drug cartels and insisting that something must be done about the neighboring country. In this context, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reiterated her administration's position of cooperation, firmly rejecting any form of military intervention. Speaking during a work tour in the state of Hidalgo, Sheinbaum said, "We are in a moment of collaboration on various issues, particularly security. What matters most is shared responsibility. We prevent drugs from entering the United States, and they must prevent weapons from entering Mexico." Trump's statements, in which he referred to Sheinbaum as a good person, would claim that the cartels from Mexico prevent fears of potential U.S. ground operation on Mexican territory. These concerns are compared by recent U.S. airstrike against other drug traffickers in the Caribbean and Pacific, which have left more than 100 people dead and further destabilized the regional situation. Prior to the Maduro case, bilateral relations had remained relatively stable, although Trump has historically applied pressure through tariff threats and demands on migration and security. Now, with Venezuela at the center of the rhetoric, Mexico is working to remain diplomatic composure while reaffirming its commitment to cooperation without relinquish the defense of this national sovereignty. Municipality of San Marcos, the epicenter of last Friday's 6.1 magnitude earthquake, remains under constant tension as thousands of aftershocks continue to shake the region and keep residents on. According to Mexico National Seismological Service, at least 2,144 aftershocks has been recorded by Sunday morning. While some economic activity have begun to resume, fear persists. We go to a break and we resume.
ContraPeso Noticias.
El lado honesto de la noticia.
ContraPeso Noticias.
Síguenos en todas nuestras redes sociales.
Somos ContraPeso Noticias.
ContraPeso Noticias.
ContraPeso Noticias.
ContraPeso Noticias.
ContraPeso Noticias.
ContraPeso Noticias. Somos ContraPeso Noticias.
ContraPeso Noticias. La chula sigue ContraPeso Noticias.
El viento sopla historias de madrugada.
ContraPeso Noticias.
Con voces de pueblo y su corazón. Aquí en Chiapas traen la verdad. Relevantes historias, pura claridad. Las voces calladas aquí tienen lugar.
ContraPeso Noticias, el sistema informativo de la Asociación de Radio, Televisión y Medios Digitales.
El Instituto Hispano te ofrece nuevas licenciaturas y maestrías. Licenciatura en Pedagogía.
We continue with important developments from the Mexican state. The Senate's Naval Affairs Committee decided to postpone the meeting schedule for next Monday, while lawmakers were set to debate authorization for the entry of U.S. troops into Mexico for training purposes. Morena Senador Manuel Huerta Ladrón de Guevara explained that the session was suspended to allow for prudent time to analyze the proposal, given the international context following the recent capture of Nicolás Maduro by U.S. authorities. Earlier, Senate President Laura Itzel Castillo had announced that the Permanent Commission will be asked to comment an extraordinary session of January 13, 2026, so the full Senate will approve the entry of U.S. military personnel. The proposal is scheduled to be formally present on January 7 and allowing the Senate to meet in extraordinary session to approve participation by U.S. Marines to join it. The program includes two main components: the development of Mexican Navy tropas to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, for the exercise to increase operational opacity of the Special Operation Unit for January-March 13, and the entry of U.S. Navy SEALs for 7 Special Force Group of the U.S. Marine Corps for the training exercise, improve the capacity of the Special Operation Forces. The activity will take place at Mexican facilities, including the Special Operation Unit headquarters in Donato Guerra, State of Mexico, the Specialized Marine Infantry Training Center in Champotón, Campeche, and the Naval Command of the Ciudad del Carmen, Campeche. It interfaces between January 19 and April 15, 2026. The entry of the U.S. Marine will occur with weapon about a military Hercules C-130 aircraft landing on January 12 at Toluca International Airport. The delegation will return to the United States on April 15 aboard the same aircraft after completing the scheduled activities. And now, a closer look at upcoming change in Mexico labor policy. The labor reform aimed at reducing the weekly work schedule for 48 to 40 hours will enter in transition phase in 2020, without immediate reduction this. Labor attorney Carla Martinez Santisban explained that 2026 will focus on legislative adjustment with mandatory implementation beginning on January 1st, 2027. From that point towards, the work week will be gradually reduced by 2 hours per year until reaching 40 hours by 2030. The initiative, introduced by President Claudia Sheinbaum, also proposed explaining a lower overtime 9 to 12 hours per week by 2030, while remaining currently pay rules. Double pay up to the legal limit at triple pay 166. The reform also includes mandatory electronic keep timing and phase implementation clearly, posing challenges for sectors already facing skilled labor shortages. Martinez noted that companies such as Walmart and Trivi has already begun international pilot programs to prepare for the change, while warning of 3 major challenges: the impact and operating costs, particularly for small and medium-sized business, the need for invest in workforce training and recruitment, and the risk that some employers may turn to informal labor arranged to reduce final burdens. Regarding potential efforts, she said that there's no certainty, although historical labor reforms have led to tariff adjustment in certain sectors. She emphasized that any labor resulting from these pressures must be considered unjustified, entitling workers to compensation under the law and the Constitution. In case of no compliance, employees may seek recourse through the federal or local labor conciliation and register certain and necessary first legal action in the pro-labor courts. We send greeting to all the radio stations that repost ContraPeso Noticias across the region. 101.5 La Multicultural de Sunchiapa, La Voz del Pueblo, Radio Flores Magón 98.9 FM, Play Hits in San Cristóbal de las Casas, Radio Morena in El Parral, Voz de Alerta in Wixla, la 89.1 FM in Salto de Agua, from Villa Comaltitlán, La Comaltitleca, La Pegadora, Radio Canoas, Radio Esmeralda, La Rancherita, La Pichanchera, La Mera Mera, La Cultural Radio, La Super Romántica, y Nocoso Cuautla through La Pegadora and Radio Conexión and Radio Migrante. grow your business with us, and reach a broad, engaged audience. At ContraPeso Noticias, we deliver relevant, high-quality information and provide a unique platform for your business, product, or service to reach thousands of people. Our diverse audience closely follow the most important news, guarantee meaningful exposure. Advancing with us offer reach, credibility, trust, and direct impact with customers who are genuinely interested in what you offer. We adapt to your needs with flexible adverse package designed to maximize your market presence. Don't miss the opportunity to connect with one more clients and strengthen your brand. Contact us today at 981 8029 0201 and discover how we can help you to business grow. Enjoy a unique stay in Cancun and Torre Caribe, located in an excellent area near Paradise Beaches, local food makers, and shopping center. Rooms availability start at 220 Mexican pesos per night with rates subject to seasonal changes. Take advantage to our special promotion. Mention ContraPeso Noticias when you call and receive 15% of your third night. Ask how ability and find the perfect option for your trip. For more information and reservation, call 901 333 6072. Make your stay unforgettable. And we go with international news. The photograph of Nicolás Maduro following his arrest in Caracas, released by Donald Trump on the social media platform Truth Social, has become a defining symbol of the U.S. military operation carried out on Sunday. The image saw the performer Venezuelan president wearing athletic clothing, a pottery headquarters with his hands restricted, a detail expected interpreted as a standard tactical security protocol. According to Mark Kansian, a retired U.S. Marine Corps colonel, the operation was handled with a low-emphasis method and procedures similar to those used with any detained where applicable. John Spencer, an expert in urban warfare, explained that covering the detained's vision and hearing is a common technique to isolate the captured individual and prevent identification for personnel or method use. Matthew Seville of the Royal United Service Institute added that such a measure is designed to subdue the detained and reduce escape risk. Other analysts note that the use of headphones may be related to helicopter transport to the warship USS Iwo Jima, where such equipment is required by protocol. The image also shows Maduro holding a bottle of water, considered a standard health and safety measure, and wearing an inflatable life vest and covered by chemical lights used to identify passengers during nighttime operation. Satellite recording and dispatch to the operation suggests that Maduro was surprised in the early morning hours while attempting to take refuge door before being subdued. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were transported to New York, where they will face charges for narcoterrorism, conspiracy to traffic cocaine into the United States, and weapon-related offenses. Now, to the legal process that lie ahead. Just hours before the start of Nicolas Maduro trial, following his arrest by U.S. authorities on January 3rd, central elements of a case that could last months or even years are coming into focus. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, had scheduled to appear his Monday, January 5th, before the U.S. District Court for Southern District of New York and the Daniel Patrick Federal Court, where they faced charges of narco-terrorism and conspiracy linked to the Cartel of the Suns and the Sinaloa Cartel. The initial hearing will include their formal hearing of charges and the defense's plea. If they plead not guilty, they are expected to remain in federal detention without bail, followed by a lengthy evidence gathering process and jury session that could take at least 1 year. If they plead guilty, a full trial will be avoided, so potential seems range for 20 years in prison to life, in addition to massive financial penalties. The case also reached legal debates over the eligibility of Maduro's arrest and transfer to the United States, as well as requests regarding his possible immunity, a status changed by the Trump administration, which does not recognize him as Venezuela's legitimate president. The president will be overseen by Judge Alvin Hersen, 92 years old, with prosecution led by U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton. Maduro and Flores' defenses still has not been yet finalized due to the sanctions that complicate his hiring of attorney without authorization for the Department of Justice. After the hearing, both are expected to be transferred to the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York, where they will be held alongside major drug traffickers, including Ismael El Mayo Zambada and Rafael Caro Quintero. Due to his complexity and international consequences, the trial is shaping up to be one of the most significant legal proceedings in the region. And Venezuela High Military Command expressed its support for the ruling of the Supreme Court of Justice, which appointed Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as interim president for the Republic and approached the implementation of the degree of external emergency. In a nationwide broadcast, General-in-Chief Vladimir Padrino Lopez said that the Bolivarian National Army Force has developed throughout the country and will continue to use all of their capabilities to ensure military defenses, order, and the preservation in defense minister urged the Venezuela people to remain calm and resume their economic and labor activities, rejecting that he described as psychological warfare and fear being imposed from abroad. The official statement denounced the cowardly kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores during U.S. military operation on January 3rd, during which, according to Padrino, both soldier and innocent siblings were killed. The offensive caused extensive damage. An 80-year-old woman was killed in La Guaira after a missile struck her home. Electrical substations were bombed, disrupting power supply in Caracas and Miranda, and more than 12,000 kidney patients were left without treatment due to the destruction of medical supply warehouses, putting the life of 9,000 critical patients at risk. Meanwhile, pro-government demonstrations took place across the country, with marches and vigils in Caracas under slogans such as "Bring Maduro back" and "Venezuela deserves respect." The government also launched a communication campaign under the slogan #Bring Them Back. Foreign Minister Ivan Gil demanded that CELAC formally condemn U.S. aggression, while Nicolas Maduro, the president's sons, released a message calling for resistance and unity, stating that the Chavista leadership will not show weakness and that history will reveal the traitors. And now, to Colombia's response to the unfolding regional crisis. The Colombian government announced this Saturday that it is evaluating the declaration of an economic state of emergency along its border with Venezuela following U.S. military attack in that country and what officials describe as the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro. The pressure aims to guarantee humanitarian assistance during medical services and food supplies in anticipation of a potential migration wave, as well as the deployment of 30,000 soldiers along the more than 2,002 kilometers of shared border. Angie Rodriguez, director of the President Entry DAPRE, started at a press conference in Cúcuta that the document is ready and awaiting final signatures for top governmental officials. President Gustavo Petro described Washington's action as an aggression against Latin America's sovereignty and warned that they will trigger a human crisis. By Saturday night, Petro shared union image of social media online showing Venezuela killed in the bombings, criticizing that he called the celebration of the destruction of American Latin bodies. Although Petro called her dialogue to resolve the conflict, he ordered the border to be fully secure where illegal armed groups linked to drug trafficking operate. He also requests emergency meetings of the Organization of American States and the United Nations for Monday in order to establish the international legality of the aggression. Colombia as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, formally requests that the body be convinced. Defense Minister Pedro Sanchez stated that security forces have activated all capacities to prevent terrorist attacks along the border, particularly by the National Liberation Army. At the same time, Pedro recalled that Trump has previously threatened to strike drug libraries in Colombia, a move he struck as a potential. Finally, analysts say that real value may not be military but economic. The capture of Nicolas Maduro by the United States cannot be viewed only as a military or judicial event. At the core of this operation lies Venezuela oil, a strategic resource that for decades has served as a lever of political and economic pressure against Caracas. From the sanctions imposed in 2019 to the partial block of shipping in recent weeks, Washington has turned Venezuela's primary source of revenue into a geopolitical battleground. The official US narrative insists the military campaign seeks to curb drug trafficking in the Caribbean. However, statements by Donald Trump following Maduro's capture reveal another motivation to manage Venezuela and rebuild its oil industry with American companies. Under the claim that Chavismo stole US investment, Trump proposed to return of America Energy Corporation to exploit a weakened sector whose production has fallen more than 70% since the late 1990s. Venezuela's oil industry, once a global powerhouse, now reduced barely 1 million barrels per day, less than 1% of global supply. Most of that crude is shipped to China through opaque operation involving ghost ship and clandestine transfers. Chevron, the last major US company still operating in Venezuela, accounts for roughly 1/4 of national production, while another European and Asia fields have scaled back with Quadra due to sanction risk. The deterioration of PDVSA is not only the result of institutional corruption and political mismanagement, but also of external pressure. Final sanction imposed in 2017 and oil sanction in 2019 accelerate the collapse of facilities depending on foreign technology. The outcome has been an industry unavailable to sustain its refineries shut down, wells abound, and a country that depends of oil for 95% of its revenue, yet can no longer freely commercialize it. The reason is blunt. Under the pretext of common drug trafficking, Washington has turned oil into the true spoil of wars. Maduro's capture opens a Judas chapter, but also exposes the intention to recolonize Venezuela's energy industry, imposing a model of dependency that contradicts any discourse of sovereignty. Venezuela, weakened by its own crisis and by international pressure, now faces the risk that its most valuable resource will be managed for abroad for the benefit of the same corporation that once turned it into a global oil power a century ago. That concludes this edition of ContraPeso Noticias Morning Edit. Thank you for joining us today. Stay informed, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you again next morning. This is ContraPeso Noticias.